Hello and welcome to GC360, your source for the latest news and stories from the heart of our community and beyond. I'm Caroline Hubbard and we have a packed show for you today.
And I'm Hallie Bergstrom. Whether you're a student, faculty member, or just someone interested in what's happening in our community, GC360 is here to keep you informed and engaged. Coming up, a new club in the business department gets a $100,000 grant from the university. Why the generous donation?
In honor of Women's History Month, a mobile mammogram bus visits Milledgeville.
And WGUR rocks out with some of your favorite local bands.
This is GC360, where news comes full circle.
You're watching GC360. Our university is full of many promising students, with some of them even going as far as creating their own campus organizations. The Georgia College and State University Foundation just gave a substantial grant to a new investment fund club, which was created by some of our very own Bobcats. Teresa Owen has the story.
$100,000 was recently allocated to a new club, the GCSU Student Managed Investments Committee. This new club will provide students with an opportunity to gain practical experience with managing an investments fund and making investment decisions. Where did the idea for the SMIC come from? Club President Jeffrey D. Benedetto is here to tell us more.
My inspiration was my brother Jake D. Benedetto. He was a Georgia Tech student, and he was the head of the organization at Georgia Tech for their investments committee. And so after learning about how awesome their investments committee was there, I took the initiative and I started it here, and I got Grayson, Stoudemire, and Joe Dubsky along with us, and been working on it ever since.
In what ways could students benefit from this club? SMIC Vice President of Sectors Grayson Stoudemire shared his thoughts with us.
Definitely, I think the presentation skills is a big one. I really think anyone can sit in front of a computer long enough and they'll learn how to value a stock and they'll learn a lot of the finance ideas, but communicating those ideas to other people and kind of getting them out there for everyone else is much harder and requires a lot more practice. So I think building those presentation skills is definitely a big one.
For more information on the SMIC and how you can get involved, visit the GCSU Student Managed Investments Committee page on LinkedIn. Reporting for GC360, I'm Teresa Owen.
According to the Washington Post, the mortality rate for U.S. women with breast cancer has decreased by a whopping 58% since 1978, with a 25% drop in the deaths due to improved mammogram screening. With these promising numbers in mind, GCSU gave students an opportunity this week to get screened. Reporter Gert Harper was there.
A mobile mammogram bus was available to members of the Milledgeville community this week. The bus was parked in the middle of campus, right next to the Magnolia Ballroom. Event organizer Kayla Brownlow explained the significance of mammograms.
We wanted to do this event because annual mammograms can help to detect cancer early, which means that they can prevent the need for extensive treatment. They can detect changes up to 2 years before they would normally be detected by a person or a doctor.
This campus service aimed to target women who are 40 or older and who have not had a mammogram in the last year. But why should an event such as this be important to every woman on campus, regardless of age?
My Aunt Lende has breast cancer and she is in her 70s, so naturally she grew up in the early 1900s where there was no awareness or any type of service like this mammogram truck that is present in Milledgeville. I believe that the easier access to these procedures and checkups would have allowed my Aunt Lende to receive better treatment more efficiently and allow the chemo to not be as up and down in the treatment process, but treat it more efficiently and at a faster rate.
According to Yale Medicine's website, women should start getting mammogram screenings no earlier than the age of 40 and no later than the age of 50, and should continue to regularly get screenings up to the age of 74. Reporting for GC360, I'm Greer Harper.
Who doesn't love a good concert? Let's face the music and jam out to WGUR's most exciting event of the semester, Sounds of the Spring. Here's reporter Kelsey Short.
Live music was at its peak during the Sounds of the Spring. WGUR's biggest event of the year was a hit for students and locals, with a total of 7 bands playing at Blackbird, Buffington's, and Dungeons and Daiquiris. These live shows brought the community together for a night to rock out to their favorite covers and new songs to discover. Sounds of the Spring attendee and band member Atticus discussed his music aspirations.
My father played a lot of classic rock, and I think deep down I just wanted to impress my father, so I learned how to play like all those songs. And then I got into other stuff like soul and jazz and R&B stuff that he wasn't into, country as well, and just fell in love with all of it, and then just started writing songs. Writing songs was really the key for me personally.
With 17 bands last year, they kicked it up by having fewer bands this time, with Lower Town closing the night. Lower Town is a rising band that opened for Biba Doobie on her tour back in 2022 and had their tour this past winter of 2024. A member of the WGUR Executive Board defines their goal for this year's Sounds of the Spring.
This year, we really wanted to create a good environment and a good music scene for Milledgeville, and we wanted to compact the music festival a little bit more. So we went from 4 venues to 3 venues, and we also went from 17 bands to 8 bands, and it was overall a great turnout, and everyone seemed to have fun.
Live music only goes up from here. Each year, the Sounds of the Spring brings people together to let loose to the sounds. Reporting for GC360, I'm Kelsey Short.
Coming up after the break, will we finally get some spring weather? Anchor Sam Payton will have the forecast.
What do you think of the classic lecture-style college class? One professor and a student will hash out their opinions.
We take a glance at the theater department.
Which is really fun because this is a really good shot while the mic.
All this and more on GC360.
Welcome, listeners. How y'all doing? Coming soon, right from the classrooms of Midway Hills and Lakeview Academies, the Writing for Success podcast, a reimagining of the 1998 anthology, Everybody Has a Story to Tell, Stories of Flannery O'Connor's Milledgeville. Baldwin County students will share their stories as part of this 100% federally funded grant of $385,000 to improve literacy in Baldwin County Elementary School. That sounds pretty good, y'all. Come check it out. Can't wait to see y'all there, or hear y'all there, or just hang out there. See you there.
News anchor? Oh, what do you want? Like 10 seconds. Can you just read this announcement for me? Okay, 10 seconds. Okay. This semester, GC360 is introducing a new show, Cat Talk. We will showcase a new guest each month and deep dive into some topical issues of concern to you. You may also see some of our guests play some silly games while they're here with us. You won't want to miss this. From GC360, this is Isabellea Vander Lende. So join me each month for Cat Talk right here on GC360.
Welcome back. Clouds, humidity, and plenty of rain is how the weather looked like in this past week. And with spring break around the corner, I can't wait to see some clear skies. Sam Payton is here to bring some sunshine. Sam?
Thanks, Caroline. Looking into Friday, don't forget your rain jacket as you head out to the Quavo concert. You can expect cloudy skies with a high of around 70 degrees. On Saturday, we will have a high of 70 degrees and a low of 54, with a 70% chance of rain, and then getting a little cooler on Sunday with a high of 58 and a low of 37. As we move into next week, Monday is still looking pretty cloudy, and temperatures will be hovering around 64 degrees. It's shaping up to be a splendid day for outdoor activities. Tuesday maintains the trend with clear skies and slightly warmer temperatures, reaching a high of 70 degrees. Whether you're hitting the trails or enjoying a picnic in the park, it's bound to be a day to remember. As we approach Wednesday, the sun goes back into hiding with cloudy skies dominating throughout the day and a high of 70 degrees. These clouds will continue into Thursday with a high of 75 and a low of 53. And there you have it, Bobcats, your weekly weather forecast for Milledgeville. Back to you.
Today, in Student versus Professor, we dive into the traditional lecture style class. The question, is the traditional lecture still effective in the modern classroom? Here's Caroline Hubbard.
Hello, Bobcats. Welcome back to Student versus Professor. Today we have lecturer Austin Cook from the Department of Communications and student Jack Licata. Welcome, guys. All right, Austin, in your experience, does the traditional lecture method adequately prepare students for real-world challenges and workplace demands?
Well, I would say that in a traditional lecture environment, it depends on how you view a traditional lecture. For me, when I went to college, a traditional lecture was a combination of a normal lecture where the professor talks to you about all the information that they know and love, provides you with a lot of context, examples, so on and so forth. But for me, the important part of it is also the discussion, a way to kind of explore what you've learned and how you've learned it, how we got to this point. So I think that from a traditional lecture standpoint, if you're thinking of like, you just show up and then get talked at for 2 hours, not necessarily, but if you add new elements to it and you make sure that there's an open forum for questions and discussion, I think that it absolutely can still hold up, especially once you get a good kind of knowledge base and a good foundation. So that way, when you do move into the more practical elements of what you are learning, you feel more prepared and you have a good base in theory and also just overall education, especially within your department.
Awesome. Jack, what do you think?
I feel like with the introduction of technology, we've moved past that traditional lecture structure. I feel like it depends on the professor, and it really, in my experience, depends on the topic. Like, for a history class, having a professor lecture, give dates, write that stuff down, and show us those dates on the board works better. But for, like, a language class, because I'm a language major, practical application is what works better. Conversations, having us answer questions. So I feel like we've moved from a standard traditional lecture because of how much more we can study now and how different each, I guess, subject is. Like, the way you would teach a language class and the way you would teach a science class are two completely different things, so it's not fair to make a generalization, at least in my opinion.
And what do you think? Do you think there are different classes where different methods are needed?
Oh, absolutely. We don't have labs in like film and TV production where I predominantly teach. We have a production lab of some sort, so I know I almost kind of contradicted myself there just a little bit, but in practical methods, like if you're in history, like yes, your focus is on the knowledge and then your analysis of that knowledge. In language, you need to speak the language and speak with someone in order to actually learn that language a little bit more efficiently. Now, in languages, it's not just speaking, you're also writing and you're learning about the culture and context of it. But since technology has advanced so much, as you mentioned, like really the important parts of different majors, it just depends on what you're looking at. Like in theory and research classes, yes, predominantly having a lecture where you're talking with each other and talking with the class and actually like asking questions, very effective. But in other languages, maybe it's not as important. So I think it really does depend on the context.
Awesome. And Jack, how does the traditional lecture style system accommodate the varying classroom speeds and styles of students within a single classroom?
I feel like there are so many different types of learners nowadays that it is a amalgamation of the professor, the content that's being taught, and how they want to teach that. Like I'm more of an audiovisual learner, so I need to see what I'm hearing. So like if a professor is just standing there with the whiteboard and just writing stuff down, I'm not going to retain any of that information. But if they have a PowerPoint up and they are making notes based off that PowerPoint on the board, and then having that PowerPoint available for us on D2L after the fact, I'm more likely to retain the information. But then again, it's also different with every subject. Like you can't apply the same methods of teaching for a history class that you would a language class and then a science class or a math class, because there's such a difference. But I feel like it's very hard to accommodate for everybody, but I feel like nowadays that there's this almost gray area or middle ground that the professor can sit in to where everybody is learning just enough to retain just enough information in class without having to every day look over the textbook or look over the PowerPoints that are being left online, just because no one person learns the same way. The professors are set up to both succeed and fail when it comes to that kind of stuff, at least in my opinion.
All right, Austin, how does the traditional lecture method address the challenges of student disengagement and attention span?
So I think especially in today's environments, a lot of times people need something added to the lecture to keep them engaged. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of times from different generations especially, people will be like, well, kids these days, it's a different environment. Like, like back in my day, it was so different. And the thing is that change is not necessarily bad. And I think when you take elements of the traditional lecture and you apply it in different methods to try and make it as engaging as possible for different people, it makes it a lot easier for people to actually communicate that, not only with their professor, but also with each other. Because at the end of the day, like, the professor can provide you with all this knowledge, but their job goes beyond that as well, too. Like, they actually need to interact with the question and with the student and kind of be able to answer that context or answer that question on a certain level. And trying to find a way that works for everybody. Like, obviously not everybody's going to have a perfect method of learning, but if you create an open space for where people can actually look at it and go, okay, well, this one wasn't necessarily the best for me. It's like flashcards. Not everybody uses flashcards. I didn't use flashcards, but I know a lot of people who it worked really well for them. And if you give them the option of having that as part of their education, as part of their kind of lecture, that's fantastic. But I also think that the material, they shouldn't be based on their memory of the material, but that they should have the ability to actually interact with that material, like uploading PowerPoints to D2L, having them available for people. I think that's the most important part. It's not only just the lecture itself, it's one part of the equation, but the learning after the fact and the engagement after the fact is equally as important.
Jack, what do you think?
I mean, I couldn't agree more, to be honest with you. I mean, I know personally, if a professor is going to sit there and lecture for 2 hours, I'll last maybe 30 minutes before I start looking at something else on my computer or take my phone out and look at something. And I have no shame in admitting that, because it's also not fair to expect students to be engaged for 2 straight hours of just someone droning
30
on.
seconds.
It's not practical, because we as humans need to constantly be stimulated. Otherwise, we'll focus on other stuff. And then you also have to take into account people who have learning disabilities, who have ADHD, who have dyslexia. Like, there's so many factors to where we've moved past the point of a generalization.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for coming and for your time. Back to you.
Thanks, Caroline. Now to Russell Auditorium, where students came together recently for a night of music and theater. Known for its dynamic energy and iconic music by Queen, the musical We Will Rock You provided the perfect canvas for students to showcase their artistic prowess. Ava Cortez was there.
Here at Russell Auditorium, the Department of Art has transformed the venue into a hub of creativity, showcasing a night filled with music and theater.
Students from various majors have collaborated to bring the iconic musical We Will Rock You to life, and the energy inside was palpable. House manager Ellie Shaw told GC360 about the production process of the musical.
Yeah, we're in charge of making sure, like, the students are in charge of making sure everything is great. Like, we put up those ladders and everything, and just making sure it's safe and that it creates an entirely different world for the guests.
The musical also required months of extensive work, lengthy rehearsals, and consistent effort from the actors. Bella Eclovea, who played the lead Galileo Figaro, shared some of her experience.
So we got our scripts in November before Thanksgiving break. And then once January hit, from the 4th through the 6th, we were here rehearsing for with our boot camp. And that was 12 to 6 every day. And then once school started, Monday through Friday 6 to 9.
And rehearsals, they start off completely new to this. People often don't even know each other, and to be an actor, you have to trust each other. You have to trust each other that you can do your job, but also that you can lean on them, and that you don't allow any negativity to come into your space.
From the early boot camp days to the rehearsals that followed, the cast and crew poured their passion into every moment of this production. I'm Ava Cortez reporting for GC360. Back to you.
Thanks, Ava. Now let's turn our attention to the roar of the crowds as we receive the latest sports update from Jackson Sports. Jackson?
Thanks, Caroline. This week in women's basketball, Caitlin Clark is taking the world by storm as she is now the NCAA all-time leading scorer in both men's and women's basketball. She broke Pistol Pete Maravich's record of 3,667 career points on 2 free throws in a win against Ohio State. Now she's become so renowned that she's helping women's basketball to become more popular than ever. Iowa women's basketball has sold out on all regular season games before the start, and the Indiana Fever has recently seen ticket profits double as fans are getting excited for Clark's arrival. The matchup with Ohio State brought in 3.4 million viewers, which was higher than the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft, Victor Wembanyama's NBA debut. With events such as the recent Sabrina Ionescu versus Steph Curry matchup, the future of women's basketball looks bright. Turning to Bobcat basketball, the Bobcats take on Aiken in the Peach Belt Conference this week in South Carolina. If the Bobcats are able to defeat Aiken, who they lost to twice in the regular season, they will face either Flagler or Augusta. This is a single elimination tournament, which means if they lose to Aiken, they're out. You can watch them live on the Peach Belt Conference Network website. So good luck to our Bobcats, and Bobcat Nation, let's ride. Back to Caroline and Hallie.
Get ready, GC360. Let's dive into the latest news from the world of entertainment.
And the Millie Farmers Market is back in town. All of this and more on GC360, where news comes full circle. See you after the break.
Welcome, listeners. How are y'all doing? Coming soon, right from the classrooms of Midway Hills and Lakeview Academies, the Writing for Success podcast, a reimagining of the 1998 anthology, Everybody Has a Story to Tell, Stories of Flannery O'Connor's Milledgeville. Baldwin County students will share their stories as part of this 100% federally funded grant of $385,000 to improve literacy in Baldwin County Elementary School. That sounds pretty good, y'all. Come check it out. Can't wait to see y'all there, or hear y'all there, or just hang out there. See you there.
This is GC360, where news comes full circle. It's time now for entertainment news, and for that, we join Cassie Arps. Cassie?
Thanks, Caroline and Hallie. Well, Bobcats, grab some popcorn because it's almost time for the 2024 Oscars. The 96th Academy Awards will be hosted for the 4th time by Jimmy Kimmel this Sunday, and here's everything you need to know about Hollywood's biggest night, which will feature some of the best films of last year, including Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things, Martin Scorsese's Killer of the Flower Moon, and, of course, Greta Gerwig's Barbie. As for who will win, well, That's decided by over 10,000 members of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science. And speaking of movies, Dune Part 2 secured the #1 spot in its opening weekend, earning a strong $81.5 million in domestic sales. Globally, the film has grossed $178.5 million. The sequel beat out the first Dune installment, which opened with $41 million when it was first released in domestic theaters in October 2021. So, if you haven't had the chance to watch it yet, I encourage you to hop on down to Millie AMC and get your tickets now. And if you aren't the biggest fan of Dune, you can come hang out with Quavo at the Spring Homecoming concert this Saturday at the Centennial Center. That's it for entertainment this week. I'm Cassie Arps. Back to y'all, Caroline and Hallie.
Thank you, Cassie. I love Dune, but I'll be seeing the spring concert this Friday. However, before I go to the party with Quavo, I need to stock up on some snacks. Let's take a run to the Millie Market, a community farmers market where you can support local farms and nonprofits. Let's hear what one of the market vendors has to say.
Well, Unity Grove Farm has honeybees, so we bring our local honey to the market, and we also bring jams that I make from the fruits that grow on our farm. I have elderberry jam and pear and peach, and our trees are blooming right now. Let's hope there's no spring frost.
We apologize for technical difficulties.
The Millie Market takes place on the first and third Fridays of every month at the Marketplace Pavilion in downtown Milledgeville. Well, that's all for GC360 this week. I'm Hallie Bergstrom.
And I'm Caroline Hubbard. When we're not on the air, you can keep up to date with us on social media. That's at GC360 News on Facebook and Instagram, and at bobcatmultimedia.com/GC360. Thank you for watching. This is GC360, where news comes full circle.
News anchor? Oh, what do you want? Like 10 seconds. Can you just read this announcement for me? Okay, 10 seconds. Okay. This semester, GC360 is introducing a new show, Cat Talk. We will showcase a new guest each month and deep dive into some topical issues of concern to you. You may also see some of our guests play some silly games while they're here with us. You won't want to miss this. From GC360, this is Isabellea van der Lende. So join me each month for Cat Talk right here on GC360.
Hi, I'm Sky Mears, the Vice President of Bobcat Media Productions. Did you know that Georgia College has a film festival? That's right, on February 23rd, the Bobcat Film Festival will return to showcase works from creatives in high schools and colleges all across Georgia. And near the end, guest speaker will take the stage to talk and answer questions about the film industry. And it's all going down in the A&S Auditorium, room 263, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And of course, I'll be your host. So what's your excuse?
What are you doing? Get off my desk.